Hello and welcome to OT the Podcast. We're here to talk about watches, time, and to atone for not doing an episode last week. My name's Felix Schultz.
And I'm Andy Green. Felix, I missed you so much.
Yeah, I got a message from several loyal fans saying, "Where are you?" I'm like, yeah,
just on holidays. You just didn't feel like getting up that day.
The reality is we've been, I don't know about you, but I've been very busy in the world of watches doing all sorts of, I'm going to say, exciting things.
Watch things. You've been back into the swing of watch things.
Yeah, admin. I'm doing watch admin as well. Like, that Worn and Wonders? Is that like Watches and Wonders / Worn and Wounds collab? Yeah, the schedule is punishing, and organising the schedule is even more punishing.
When are you off? 4 weeks?
I think end of March.
End of March, yeah, so 4 or 5 weeks.
God, I've got to do some stuff.
Well, we know you got some shirts made, so that's one thing you can tick off your list.
I haven't picked them up. We're gonna do that bit of it.
Yep.
What have you been up to? What's happening in the world of Andrew Green?
Well, Felix, we did a watch dinner in Melbourne, Panerai. We hung out with 30, 40 people.
Yes,
hundreds of people.
Yeah, they're opening a boutique in Shardston, and they're sort of getting a bit of the local presence,
drumming up some interest. Well, I think the real reason was they had a bunch of watches in town. The stars aligned, but they had some pretty special watches as far as Panerai go. They had the limited edition Razer.
That was a nice watch.
That was a really cool watch.
Good size.
Yeah, 40mm case. Branding
wasn't over the top.
But you could barely see it. Like it was just sort of...
So stealth. Unlike the RGB lights on a Razer keyboard.
But through that watch, I sort of learned about the synergies that Razer and Panerai have in terms of the environmental stuff. A lot of E-steel in the room, so
yes.
That's the was it like 99% recycled?
You had an E-steel on the wrist, didn't you?
I did the Blue Profondo. I think it's submersible.
What did you think of it? Like, I know we've sort of frothed the more recent Panerais. In episodes past. Would you wear one?
Yeah. I think the rubber strap's really comfortable. The PET strap's really comfortable.
Yeah.
Recycled as well. I'd probably go somewhere between 40 and 42 for my personal Panerai, which is very much exists. Probably rules out a few of the chronograph options on offer though. But yeah, I mean the dials are pretty nice. The bezels are solid. Really nice colours.
Just a nice package. It's classic.
I mean, if you wanted to know about the recycled, the E-steel, I can't tell you the difference. So I'd say it's probably exactly the same.
One gives you a warmer feeling inside than the other.
Exactly. One makes you a better person, gives you those bragging rights. Also, they had a bronze boy, blue dial.
Yeah, I saw one on the wrist and one in the vitrine as well, which was the
rare watch to see.
So cool. I mean, it's like I remember when you and I were getting. Into the world of watches. The Bronzo was the hottest thing.
It was such a hot watch. It was like double, 2.5, 3 times retail. It was just everyone wanted one.
Yeah.
If you had a Bronzo, wow.
You had the hookup. You had the.
It was bigger than the Patek Nautilus for sure.
More niche, maybe.
Probably could have done a straight swap. I dare say you could have done a straight swap Bronzo for a 5711 back in the day.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, no, I reckon you could.
Yeah.
Prices, like I remember Nautilus
30s, yeah.
Was sort of around 30. Bronzos were like 50.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, gosh. Well, the times, they have changed, but you know what hasn't changed? The fact that the Bronzo is a very, very cool watch. Thanks to Panerai Australia for, inviting us to be part of that roadshow, and hopefully we'll see more exciting things coming from them in 4 weeks, apparently.
It's interesting sort of walk down nostalgia lane, and the Bronzo's a bit of that for us, because I started watching something, it was one of those things, I better tell Felix, Battlebots on Netflix. You said, is it like Robot Wars? It's exactly like Robot Wars.
Is it the Netflix branded version?
No. I think this stuff is like from 2015. They've dug out like 8-year-old content and said, we could probably sell this for $1 million to Netflix. And they've done exactly that.
And they're all like university teams and stuff? Is this?
It's international. This is, people fly in, there's university teams. It's a free-for-all. It's come a long way since the Robot Wars of the 1990s, Felix.
I have seen them every so often on on the internet, like little clips of them on certain social media apps.
Yeah, there's live crowds there, panel of judges. There's a couple of hosts. One of the hosts is a retired UFC fighter,
Yeah, sure.
a guy named Kenny Florian.
What a name.
Googled him because he was rocking a Panerai.
What was he rocking?
A Panerai.
Oh, was it probably the 214?
For the reference? Oh, it was
Maybe the 872?
No, it was a submersible.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
On like a brown leather strap, I think. I was like, he hit me up for reference. You can just tell it's a Panerai. This is the thing about Panerai. You can tell it's a Panerai, but I can't tell you what.
I tell you what, there were people in that room the other night that would have been able to tell you what reference it was.
100%. But it's just, if you've never seen Robot Wars or Battlebots, it's just dreamy nerd content. Basically, you've got contestants that have armored, remote control robots, cars, and they just battle the other robots. Sometimes it's like a free for all with like 3 or 4. Sometimes it's 1v1.
Yeah, sure.
There's obstacles in the arena, so like hammers that come down, screwdrivers. Bits open up. The floor can pop you up. There's like blades coming out the floor. I don't exactly know the requirements on these robots, but some of them weigh 30, 40 kilos and are, kind of terrifying.
Yeah.
And you just have to disable or destroy the other.
Again, I've got a very limited understanding, but what I find fascinating about it is that much in the way of utilitarian sports watches, it sort of evolved into like 3 essential shapes. Like there's ones that are basically like wedges, and then there's ones that are like bricks, and then there are, super lightweight ones. Like there's obviously, theory and science behind it. But you know what, Andy? I don't want to know the theory and science. I just want to see.
Well, no, that's what you learn it, because you look at them and you go, no, there's no way this one wins. And then
they have like little flippers, and they flip them over.
Not even. There was one that was like big, like these big meter wheels that were like a polypropylene, it's like a plastic. And then it just had like this like stick that spun around in the middle. And there's no way this thing wins. Like it's just got plastic wheels. And spoiler alert, it wins. Yeah, this big thing just comes at it and just like knocks it, and then the wheels just kind of like bend and then snap back into place. And he just destroyed it. So there's always these upsets. There's also quite a bit of user kind of, I guess, reliance on the actual ability to drive them.
Oh, there's skill in. It's not like they're like remote control skills.
Yeah, there's tactics. There's a lot of tactics, and they modify them slightly depending on who they're up against. The robots all have great names like Tombstone, Yeti, Huge. The people behind the robots. That's why I watch it though.
The real heroes.
They're the real heroes.
Do you think we could sponsor a team?
Honestly, having seen some of the sponsors, I think we could get in on a team.
Sure. Okay.
I think we could get it on a team. Like there's some pretty low tier sponsors.
Follow-up question. Watch brand. Rolex has the Masters. They've got the Sydney to Melbourne, yacht race. Tag Heuer has Formula One. What watch brand is sponsoring Battlebots?
This was going to be my question to you.
Okay. Well,
you have to pick.
First, so
you got to get 2. So I would say definitely Hublot.
Okay.
Hublot would come in with their, the materials, and they just go, let's go. And then I think naturally you're going to see Richard Mille in there, just covering the titanium bill, because you do see a lot of titanium because it's like strong.
I've got a slightly more niche one, but it's along the same sort of theory as Richard Mille. Devon Tread. Do you remember Devon Tread?
Okay.
They're they're quartz powered. They use rubber sort of. I'm using the hand motion, but that doesn't work on podcasts. Wheel, like what do they call
losing us?
Anyway, Devon Tread. I'll link it up. They would be perfect for Battlebots.
Sin also would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like they just come in with some big slabs of metal.
Yeah.
But sure. Other than that, I don't know if I mentioned to you I was playing The Last of Us Part 1.
Yeah, sure.
Talked about watching it.
Yep.
Been playing it.
You still watching it?
Yeah. I mean, the new episode today. That's exactly what I'm going to do when I'm done with you lot.
I mean, spoilers as to when we're recording this.
But I finished Part 1. What an emotional journey, and I'm on to Part 2.
Yep. Are you I was reading something about one of the voice actor that played Ellie in the first season. The game.
Yep.
She was apparently quite instrumental in changing the character development arc, because they wanted her to sort of act a bit more and I think it's something we saw in the show, they wanted her to act a little bit more afraid and less like needing protection. Whereas she sort of changed to, I don't think she'd do this. She would, probably try and have a crack. And
she's a weapon.
Yeah. So, yeah, I thought that's kind of nice. It's nice seeing behind the scenes of like game development.
It's an amazing, I mean, the first part was amazing, second part shaping up, but I'm getting like cramps in my hand from like gripping the controller too tightly from the stress. So I don't know.
You need like check in with your Battlebots friends. I'm sure
I need some ice. I need some ice for afterwards.
Esports teams.
So that's like all the stuff that I've been doing that's not at all watch related, other than the loose connections I've made. What about you, Felix?
Don't worry, I'll make up for it.
Yeah, please.
I've been doing several watch related things. In fact, future Felix, we've broken the fourth wall because I was going to sort of pretend that I had already gone, but now you've put the cat out of the bag that we're recording this on Monday. By the time this goes live, I will have attended a Hamilton event in Sydney. I think they're doing a media event. The brand has finally launched down under, which is exciting for everybody.
You've got it. You're going to come back and tell us about it when you've been?
Yeah, well, it's coming up. I think it's good to see the brand doing stuff in Sydney. Not the only trip up to our fair sister city that I've done. I also went up there for a day trip to watch a telecast of the launch of the very technically impressive and quite handsome Blancpain 50 Fathoms Tick Gombessa. Did you come across this launch recently, Andy?
I did. I think Adrian Barker did a video on it. I saw quite a bit on social media around the launch. What makes this watch special?
You know what made it special for me? So it was a bit of it was telecast in the Asian region at the time I went. They simulcast it between, I'm going to say French Polynesia, I could be wrong there, and Switzerland. You know who was hosting it?
Oh,
Jason Bloody Heaton. He's looking good.
I mean, who else?
Yeah. He got to, sort of talk us through some of the features. The main thing for me, aside from how it looks, which is sort of a bit of a more modern take on the 50 Fathoms, a 3-hour bezel, which is apparently something that is useful in modern diving.
3 hours? It's a solid dive time.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons as to why this is, possible technologically. I didn't understand a lot of them, but maybe we should investigate getting Jason back on to explain it to us.
I reckon that'd be pretty cool because there's quite a bit of loom on this dial, blue and green. Interesting strap, interesting material,
interesting lugs.
That dome sort of vibe on the bezel insert's pretty cool. I want to know more about Gombessa expeditions.
I can tell you about Gombessa if you would like.
I'll tell you in a second, but this is Act 2. What was Act 1?
A pretty average sort of historical re-edition in a smaller size.
Okay, cool. So they're just warming up. Yeah, I mean, tell me about Gombessa. They've got a cool logo. They've got a logo that I would probably get on a baseball cap and wear, and I don't have anything idea about.
There's a guy named Laurent Ballester who is a sort of a scientist and diver that I've been working with for a long time now. And he has done a lot of work about a thing called the coelacanth, which is like I'm sure I'm saying that incorrectly. It's a prehistoric fish that people thought had disappeared and has come back. They found it, 50 years ago, and it's just been hanging out at the bottom of the ocean for the last few millennia.
Just hiding from us all. Smart move.
Wild. And they do a lot of sort of scientific research. Part of the sort of the Blancpain's CSR program with oceans to lead.
Keep them oceany.
Oh, what do they call it?
Preservation?
There's a name. God. This is awkward.
Anyway.
Those blue ceramic case ones that they release every few years to raise money and awareness. Anyway. Nice watches. Well done. Diving. Classic. Jason Heaton. Gombessa.
You've done well. It is cool. I mean, Blancpain really do kind of stick to their guns on the conservation and the ocean.
Yeah, they've been selling that story for a long time.
Every time you go to Sydney, it's an event for something to do with Blancpain and the ocean. So I love it because it's an important part of the world.
You know who else I caught up with in Melbourne, not Sydney. I didn't go up to Sydney for this one. One of the most charming men in the watch world that I've met recently.
Uh-oh.
Nicholas Bowman-Scargill.
Mr. Scargill.
Bowman-Scargill
Bowman-Scargill.
from Fears.
Fears.
Yeah, so Fears watches, you may have heard of them. They're a sort of a
We've
small.
talked about Fears before.
Oh, well, I'm making the content.
All right.
UK-based mob,
Yep.
doing very well for themselves. Apparently, sort of scaling up. They've got bigger team now. They're learning from other people in the UK scene. They've got grand plans of, I wouldn't say world domination, but certainly world consolidation on a reasonable and achievable level.
They've got some big fans. They just sort of popped up on the radar. I know there's a bit of history to the name and the brand and the family behind it. But the last few years, they really just kind of dropped in on the map.
Yes.
Yeah, they've made waves. I mean, you see some pretty legit watch collectors raving about them.
Yeah. And I got to see the watches, which was nice. They had a pink dial that was very hard to capture. Sort of pink is it's an interesting color. Like in the light, it just sort of looked like a washed out cream. Like a peachy color, not like a sort of the pop of Anodyne.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that they did a watch collaboration with Garrick that I think had Tourbillon. That was very cool. But I think it's really interesting that they've seen Australia's an important market for them, and Nicholas was talking about opening points of sale or distribution down here. Sorry, I shouldn't say he's not talking about opening a Fears boutique. He's talking about getting distribution down here, which is really cool. Like it's not necessarily the traditional first or second market that you go into, and I'm sure he's having these conversations with other parts of the world. But
reminds me of early Bremont days. The charming Brits come to town and friends. But it just seemed that he's putting a lot of effort into sort of networking and getting out there. So
exactly, and I think we talked about that sort of Bremont thing as well, and I wonder if like there is a buzz like.
I've been this work for it.
Around the UK. And I think the scale of it has to do, like I'm sure there's as many small American brands, but they're set, all across America. Whereas, you could visit most of the watchmakers in England in a day or two.
Yeah. So you saw the watches. What's the price point? Because I think I was caught off guard. More expensive than I thought they might be.
Don't quote me, but the ones he was sort of the core ones he was saying around 6-7 Aussie.
Okay.
But please, for any formal pricing queries, go to fearswatches.com, which we will link up in the bio. But yeah, interesting brand to watch, and we should keep our eyes on them. And
maybe we'll have him on sometime. We'll get him on the podcast.
Maybe. I mean, what's been going on in the wider world, aside from the news of Andy and Felix? What's been happening in the world of watches?
Just the broad world. Well, more news. Pharrell Williams, NERD, nerd, or, as you might know him as Pharrell.
Mm-hmm.
Famous for his big hats, famous for his lovely kind of style, famous for, recently we talked about it, but he sold off a bunch of his like early 2000s gear, like gem set mobile phones and
did we talk about that?
Watches. Yeah, we would have talked about the Pharrell auction, I'm sure. He sold like some wacky, really dated 2000s, gem set chains and watches and Casios and that sort of stuff.
Nice.
But he's he's now at Louis Vuitton.
The creative director of Menswear?
Yeah. So that got me thinking he's pretty passionate about his watches. I don't know how legit the affiliation is with Richard Mille. I don't think they really have an official partnership. I think it's one of those sort of...
He made a limited edition with them.
Yeah, but I think it's watch in hand. Like, I don't think they own him. But I do wonder if that LVMH money is going to talk, and maybe we'll see some cool watches eventually kind of start coming out of LV.
100%. I think LV is gearing up on the watch front. I thought you were alluding to the fact that maybe LV's going to try and acquire Richard Mille.
Oh, I doubt that.
No, I don't think they would want to sell.
I doubt that, but it has me thinking because he's such a cool, stylish guy, and he does have that strong passion for watches.
What do you think about this, though? The discourse I've been seeing around this, it's less around watches, but more about the fact that you've gone from... Obviously, he's replaced the late Virgil Abloh Pharrell's not technically a designer. He's done clothing labels and he's done collaborations. He doesn't necessarily have any formal or
Training.
significant professional.
Well, here's my thing. Here's my thing on Pharrell. What's he done in the last 13 years?
Certainly hasn't aged.
He's not aged, but he has survived and thrived. And I can't tell you exactly what he's done. I know he did one kind of pretty big song, that Robin Thicke song, but I can't tell you. But the man has stayed
punk
in the last 13 years, since 2010. Like, Nerd was massive, like pretty big.
Yeah, sure.
For a small amount of time. And yet Pharrell has stayed relevant and around. And here he is. And everyone talks about him. And maybe it was the big hats, maybe it's the style, but somehow he has stayed. He's grown in the 10 years that he stopped really doing, performing and new music. And I don't know if he's been producing or whatever.
That Daft Punk album was 10 years ago. Wow.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's what I'm saying. What's he been doing? What's he been up to?
Making friends with the Arnaud family.
Exactly. And so if you can do that, then I'm sure he can handle,
I mean, it kind of sucks if you're someone that's imagine being like the 2 or 3 I see at Louis Vuitton menswear, and like
but these roles always go to.
No, I don't think they
hypey
do.
Names.
Yeah, they go to names, but they've like been designer names. Like it's like Hedi Slimane or even Virgil Abloh. He was primarily a designer. He wasn't like it's the thing for me is like, why would you tell your kids to study fashion? Just tell them to be, Instagram famous if you get to the same point.
No, look, Pharrell's got talent. I'm
not trying to say
I minimize his last 10 years. I'm sure he's been doing stuff, but it's been for someone to be so public in front of mine, and you just say Pharrell, and like this generation knows it.
He's been hosting The Voice, hasn't he? One of those ones?
I mean, I don't know, but he's still so relevant and topical. He's talented. So... Yeah, it would suck. It would suck if you were overlooked. But these, I feel like these creative director roles are really kind of, they're sort of created for people with big names and just sort of handed to people sometimes. So, and these luxury
names, Andy.
Huh?
Speaking of big names,
yeah, old Ben Clymer resurfaced, and he resurfaced for a not talking watches, but a collector's edition on Hodinkee with Kevin Hart. Very good get. Very good get.
I haven't watched it.
I've watched probably half of it. I mean, as soon as I saw Ben doing it, I'm like, yeah. I mean, you started Hodinkee. This is your business. If anyone's going to talk to Kevin, it's going to be me. Solid interview. I feel like I'm so used to seeing Kevin Hart funny that I might have been expecting it to be funny. But there's a nice story in there about how he accidentally broke embargo on like a ceramic 50th anniversary chronograph Royal Oak. I found that great because the CEO of AP, Francois, calling him up and apparently pretty angry at him for accidentally wearing it out in public and being spotted.
No, I mean that's gold. That's like free marketing gold.
Well, that was the thing. I mean, I think Kevin Hart was like, so basically, I'll tell you the story, but he asked for some watches to wear in a movie, got sent a box of 3, he said there was no paperwork, he didn't get a call about any of them, so he just wore one out one day to like some awards.
Sure.
Broke the internet, and then Francois was like, we had everything planned, you were meant to wear this in a movie, we've got this big marketing campaign. But yeah, I mean, you've saved yourself doing the event because the buzz around it. But they both seemed like they took a pretty stubborn stance on it. I mean, Kevin Hart knows his worth, right? Also, what I found interesting, Felix, was he kind of basically is unofficial ambassador.
Yeah, right. Of course,
right? Like you feel that, but to kind of hear it, a lot of people in the comments didn't love that.
Why not?
Well, because it was meant to be collector's edition, and you've basically got an ambassador on only talking about one brand.
I understand.
And sort of the angle of like, I've moved on beyond, Richard Mille and Rolex, whatever, and all that was AP. And look, if you had one brand, AP is probably one of the 3 brands I would choose to exclusively wear if I had to. And if I could do a deal where I got, a box of watches instead of, payment to, and, hey, send me another slab.
Yeah.
I've got some movies coming
bring up
on.
my slab.
Like it's a win-win-win. Like there's no losers in this deal. But yeah,
Yeah.
it did get a bit of a mixed sentiment
Sure.
on it. But yeah, I mean, it's cool. I mean, Kevin Hart's one of those, like, he's a massive, figure and a massively public watch guy. So it's cool to see. It's cool to see that he sat down and even just validated a website like Hodinkee with a proper sit down video. So yeah, I mean, check it out. It's good watch content.
Yeah, okay. Another bit of good watch content from Hodinkee.
Yep.
Culture of Time. What Makes a Watch Sexy by Sarah Miller. It's published on Valentine's Day.
Okay. And what makes a watch sexy other than, you wearing it, Felix?
The wearer, Andy. No, this was a really, really interesting story for me because it's super clickbait, but it's actually good.
Okay.
Like it's a sort of a really thematic, not to get too nerdy, it's from an editorial point of view, it's a great Valentine's Day story that isn't, 17 watches for her.
Yeah.
And it breaks down the way. It's sort of pretty light and tongue in cheek. And Sarah Miller is really, really good. Like, I don't think she comes from hardcore watch nerd background, but she can write and she can talk about these objects in a really, really interesting way. Like, so she talks about the seductively sexy Bulgari Serpenti, the sexy because I'd be a good husband Omega Seamaster 300, which is so accurate. Another one, the artsy sexy watch, which is the iconic Ulysses Nardin sexy mermaid piece.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the other? Yeah, she goes through some. Is it sexy or is it just weird leopard print Daytona? Which I think they missed opportunities to talk about sexy like Nick Cage.
Yeah.
It's sexy because I'm rich. It was a really nicely done clickbait sort of story that I didn't feel dirty after reading. Like you do. Like you see the ones of like, oh, you won't believe this one thing that Richard Mille did, and you click it, and then you just feel like you've wasted a bit of your life and you're less of a person.
Another erotica watch list.
Well, no, I'm not even saying not even dirty in that way, but you get
Well, that's the low hanging fruit that we typically see.
So I was really, I just thought I'd do a little bit of a shout out to that because I thought that was a really
Sarah Miller. We should see if she wants to come on the show.
We should. What else? Another one that's just been released this week. Longines, Majetek, is back.
Back again?
It's back. It's back again. So the Longines Majetek was originally a pilot's watch made in the 30s for the Czech military.
Yep.
Air Force, I'm going to say. It was
Air Force.
Yeah, it's a pilot's watch. Makes sense. It was redone in 2017, and 6 years later, they've done it again.
It's back in black and gold, bronze.
No, just old radium loom there. So that's
no. What's the case material?
Steel, mate.
Oh,
you need to check your eyes. It's a 43mm steel case.
Okay.
That was one of the things I wanted to talk to you about. 43mm in 2023, bold choice.
Pilot's watch.
Yep.
Pretty big, pretty bold.
Yep, chunky boy.
Let's be serious though. There's plenty of chunky pilot's watches out there still.
I do like the bezel. I think they've improved on the bezel. So it's got the original one of the main features was like a real sort of coin edge, bidirectional rotating bezel that had like a little bit at the 12 that you could use as a timer.
Sure.
So they've got that. I think they've cleaned it up from the previous versions, like thinner numerals. I do think the vintage look is nicer. I think it's a slightly cleaner update. And the nylon strap, the fabric strap is nice. I just wonder, like, it's striking. Like, it's not a big watch, or was ever really an important watch in the Longines collection. Like, why are they still
the Czech fam? The Czech collectors, man.
Or do they just want to hit those vintage targets?
Well, I was telling you when you told me about this watch, one of my mates has one, or he had one.
Yeah.
Back it was the early watch collecting days, but he pursued.
He had the reissue or the OG vintage?
He had the Eterna Majetek.
Sure.
And he's a Czech fella.
Oh yeah, nice.
So loved it. That was one of the reasons. So maybe this is who it's appealing to. People like that, have those Czech ties.
Yeah, Hodinkee. I mean, it did well for a company inspired by it.
I mean, if it sounds like a watch you like, check it out. Felix will.
Oh.
Felix will link it up. But cool. No, it looks good on the fabric strap. Longines are always doing stuff.
Yeah.
Speaking of old
Pilots' watches.
pilots, what about those sky pilots? Space pilots, otherwise known as astronauts. Did you see our friend Eric Wind is selling Scott Carpenter's Omega for a cool 1.5 million US, which is low twos if you're spending Australian currency.
Honestly, cheap at the price, I reckon.
Well, yeah, because another one sold last year for just under 2 US at auction, though. So this is you want it, you can buy it. Eric Wind, windvintage.com. It's going to be on the front page, but who knows for how long. But this watch is gold Speedmaster. It was given to the astronaut, Mr. Scott Carpenter, in 1969. Great year. We always say it, great year. For his work on Project Mercury. So at this event, I think there was like 30 given out. He's got number 6, but it was this is the one where they also gave President Nixon and the Vice President,
and they had to give them back.
Spiro Agnew, and they weren't able to keep him, so they had to give him back. And they're at Omega's museum.
I've seen them. I've seen.
You've seen them, right?
Yep.
So of the 30, actually not that many float out there. This one is offered from Scott Carpenter's family, which is cool. So it's like original owner, essentially. Yep. And as you said, it sort of feels pretty cheap. A lot of people say this is a very significant one. I mean,
the only thing is that would be keeping that price a bit more realistic. Wasn't worn in space.
Wasn't worn in space. And, I mean, the market's not what it was last year, It's
true.
It's over that peak, but
you just hold off and sell it 5 years' time.
Maybe they want to, I don't know, pay some bills or something. But I look at it and I said, there is a lot of charm to an old vintage gold watch that's been worn.
I'm on the record in many, many places as saying I would go the contemporary version of that as my solid gold watch. And I don't like Speedmasters generally, but that one is just such a special watch.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it's probably the preference for a Speedmaster.
Yeah, there was one in Melbourne years ago. I remember mutual friend was like, "Oh, I'm vaguely looking at this." It was like a Lennon Joel. They were selling it for $25K. Not an astronaut one, but
just the gold one.
The burgundy dial gold from.
They've been doing precious metal Speedmasters for. I mean, obviously, 1969, right? So this is the 60s, and I'm sure there's some deals to be had out there. Reliable movement.
Not anymore.
I mean, I'm sure in comparison to other stuff. Let's check. Who knows? Let's check. Let's look it up.
If you've got a solid gold Speedmaster that you want to sell us for under $25K, email us at otthepodcast.com.
We are buying. Let me look at yellow gold Speedmasters on Chrono 24.
Is this
you can get some ugly ones for like 15. Broad arrow.
Can you say ugly? Do you mean genuinely ugly, or Felix would really love it ugly?
Oh, this could go either way with you. I'm gonna. Yeah, okay, like $50,000. It's a lot of money. Yeah, it's crazy. 80th anniversary that you love is now $82,000, and that looks pretty worn. So the 50th anniversary. They're in it. Yeah, we've missed this boat, Felix.
100%. Yeah. Anyway, another week in watches. What are we doing? What are we doing next week? We'll have something. We'll have something for you.
We'll have someone to talk to next week.
Yeah, sure. We'll make it happen. Andy, thanks as always for showing up and talking to me about Robot Wars and
all the things this week.
We've been all over the shop. If you want to compliment us on our professionalism and dedication, otthepodcast@gmail.com, ot.podcast on Instagram. Anything else, Andy?
Join our Discord. There's been some hot takes. We can't share these hot takes
on
the show.
For legal and, societal
longevity.
Yeah.
Longevity. We can't. But there's a topic going on in there right now.
Let's just say they're not wrong.
They're not wrong. We've talked about the model and the brand. So.
Kevin Hart's in there. Bag and AB.
Vaguely. And 5-star reviews. Share with your friends. All that great stuff. We'll see you next week.
Cheers.